did he mean? What are you?
Just a humble bounty hunter, man.
I guess you wonder where I've been,
What are you?
I searched to find love within. I guess you wonder where I've been, I searched to find love within. I guess you wonder where I've been,
What are you?
I searched to find love within.
Bounty hunter.
All right, guys, what's going on? My name is Evan Duvall. This is the Eazy Does It podcast. I'm here with my friend Steve Hatchet from Of Color. We've got the Black Art Weekend going down here in Austin, Texas. So I'll let you go ahead and give us an introduction of what y'all are doing and get into what all this represents.
Appreciate you. So Of Color in general is a visual artist collective of people of color. And Black Art Weekend is happening during Juneteenth, and we're showcasing black visual artists. And also, since it's Music History Month, we're also doing black musicians as well. It's going across 5 different venues, incorporating right around 23 plus artists, including myself as a photographer, and working with a team, Boss Movement, Akila, our graphic design person, and our creative director, Asia Haney. So far, so good. You know, this has been sort of a labor of love for a long time. We're also thinking about, how do we also continue this movement, because so far it's been a success. We've sold over 300 tickets. Wow. And still trying to push the envelope on making sure that artists of color are seen, and intentionally so.
Right.
And I'm from Chicago originally, been here in Austin for about 4 years, and just didn't see a lot of that intentionality. I'm gonna keep using that word throughout this podcast.
Sure, it's an important word.
Just because sometimes it's not from an offensive perspective. It's just from a perspective of you just don't know sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And when we were thinking about doing little shows here and there with Of Color, we did one event in February 2019, and we're about to do our full show in March of 2020, and then COVID hit, and Black Art Weekend was the first time doing Juneteenth with everybody being vaccinated. We thought that it'd be a
Oh, shit. Lost.
okay.
All right, we're good.
Okay. We thought it'd be the best time to think about how do we go big or go home.
Yeah.
And if you ever been to Art Basel, that's kind of the flow that we're going with.
Right.
We have an event happening tonight, dance party, with Brad Against the Storm, as well as DJ K. Cali.
Cool.
And you ever see, was it like the 4th or 3rd Matrix? There's been a lot of them motherfuckers.
I can't distinguish which one is which at this point.
You can't, right? It's the one where Neo is like in his like hippie garb, and then whatever his damn name is, and Trinity is like dancing, and it's like this rave out.
Yeah.
I really want that tonight, right?
All right,
I want that slow motion jumping up
That's
and
a
down
vibe.
and doing that thing. It's that vibe, because like it really is, that important when we think about celebrating your culture and what it is, and doing it during Juneteenth allows us to center that more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been excited for this interview, and it's just an extension of what Eazy Does It represents is really just who's serving the community of Austin, Texas, and in what way, and giving them a platform to speak on that. And this couldn't match the bill any more than that, right? Cool. And so y'all are stepping up into the community with an important message and doing y'all's part, and a lot of work goes in behind the scenes, as far as bringing all this together.
Yeah.
But that energy and that effort is apparent, and I know that it will be celebrated. And I think that's just an amazing opportunity to, like you said, celebrate culture
Yeah.
and bring awareness. Because there isn't a huge African American community here in Austin,
Yeah.
especially outspokenly. And it was like I was talking to Tobar upstairs, viewing the gallery, and we were talking about how it's kind of, and there's never really an intimate focus on African American culture in a gallery, and so for y'all to do that here, for it to be the focus, is special.
And the issue is, like, a lot of people don't even know, like, because a lot of whitewashing happens in history and generally, right? In general. And Native, at least his part, was actually, this space used to be a black-only hotel, right, in the late 1800s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I think 1894 to 1910. And we're like, oh my God. So
Yeah,
to have something centered here, to have it sort of entrenched in that identity,
Yeah, it's rooted.
became sort of like a really interesting twist to that, right?
Yeah.
And then also too the fact that a lot of I think both the owners have some heritage that is from a BIPOC perspective. It definitely sort of made this a really great option when we're thinking about venues and spaces and people to partner with.
Yeah, undeniably.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, and then as far as the artists that are featured in this gallery, have y'all worked together before, or was this really just an opportunity to reach out to artists and get them together, or how did it all come together?
Well, we have a really dope media partners in Young Black Austin, Soul City, Encore, and so many other folks that are just spreading the word about what we wanted and what we needed, specifically vendors, definitely options for artists in general, because we're spread out across, like I said, 5 different locations. 4 of them are gallery spaces.
Yeah.
And of course, Native upstairs, Northern Southern, Philip has been amazing, and always just open to us kind of making these things work. Everybody's Studio, which is a black-owned yoga studio on 12th and Chacon, Dear Coffee Gallery, Dear Diary Coffee, and it was just an ask, right? It wasn't anything that required us to do more than we thought we should.
Right.
I remember when we were first starting out, sort of reaching out to galleries, sometimes it just was like, I don't know you, I don't trust you, no. And as opposed to, hell yeah, we understand what you're actually trying to do. And it just felt discouraging, right? After that first one we did in February 2019, when we had about 80 people in this gallery, Sean Lewis has just been an amazing partner in doing that. It just became sort of even more hard to even make it happen. We just couldn't even figure out why. And I think now, coming full circle, a year and a half now, and doing the whole event across 5 venues just seems so surreal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of change that's happened, as far as like awareness in the last, year, so I think just the separation between 2019 to 2021 as far as awareness and support is, that may be why people are more open to having that conversation. Before, it's like it is kind of a touchy subject, or people just want to avoid it because that's the easy thing to do, instead of like actually taking a chance and making this a part of the conversation and, putting your business name, like whatever, but it's important that, I think Austin, the potential there is just ask, like you were saying, because, here with gallery and arts, it's like, man, I think there's a lot of opportunity here for people to support each other, especially when it's real.
What was funny? Like, we did an advertising on Facebook, right? Just a sponsored ad, just talking about Black Art Weekend, and just simple, right? Nothing too in your face, whatever. Everybody liked it and loved it, and then we have 2 mean faces, right? And we just couldn't understand, like, why not celebrate?
What's the perception here?
Exactly, because like a lot of times too, the default is white, right? And when folks of color don't see themselves, right, it's no we're angry, right? It's no we're mad. It's just well, that's cool. Let's just try to do our own thing, right? And see what happens. And so, and also being in Texas, where a lot of those things are just sort of out in the open. It's very interesting and new to me.
Yeah.
Because again, coming from Chicago, like this 33% black, like
Right.
it's just embedded within sort of that mantra, right? So I think that's a really important piece to that too, is how do we get to a point where we're acknowledging what those issues are. We're being brave enough to talk about it,
Right.
and then we're moving past it. A favorite episode of Mindy Cleric's show, who is this beautiful Indian woman, and she had one of her white friends. He said something that may have been insensitive. She corrected him, and in the same sentence, he just kept walking.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like,
Sure.
This is I trust you.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out, and we're just gonna keep going.
Yeah, it wasn't
And
personal. It just, okay, we learn, we grow, and then we continue.
Right,
Because
and-
there's other things that we appreciate about each other than just, perspectives or, the way we think. I mean, there's always room for it to be molded as well.
Yeah.
And our friends and acquaintances help us with that.
Yeah, and if we're being sexist, women to do the same thing because we love them, and or if it's LGBT, talking about pronouns and getting that confused, and
Yeah.
all of that is about we want to be in spaces and we want Austin to be inclusive as it wants to be and hopes to be.
Yeah, I think it's a very inclusive place. It's just having the will to ask and make the space, and y'all are doing y'all's part in that, And I think getting back to on a societal level, you said that the default is white. I think almost like the default is almost like a fear-based narrative as well.
Yeah.
Just like what's going to work, or what do people really want to support, or what do people understand or want to get out. And it's like, all right, in Central Texas, like people may not understand on a deep level like other people's culture, so they don't know that they want to get out and celebrate it.
Yeah.
In other places, it's more a part of the community. And so, you grow up with it. It's like, man, like we have the ability to, think rationally, in 2021 and expand our horizons on such a real level. There is no excuse as to why you shouldn't understand someone else's culture. Like we have access to that information. All right.
Or want to.
Right. Yeah. And that's getting more and more popular, especially we look at the introduction of social media, and like people, whether they're aware of it or not, are more aware of others' cultures. If you grew up in small town Texas, in 50s, 60s, 70s, like, dude, that was all you knew.
Yeah.
And your impression of the world was what your father told you, and like that's not a reality anymore. And so if there are these narratives that are being carried down lineage from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and those are still standing, it's time to start asking questions.
Yeah.
And like no matter what your background is or who you are or what nationality you are, we have the access to information, we have the ability to learn, we have the ability to reach out to others. And hopefully that turns more towards, a celebration and coming together.
Yeah.
Because that's important.
Yeah, and I really think we're in a space where people are being open enough to push aside shame for not knowing, to push aside fear for not being willing to grow. And that's the only way that this inclusive identity becomes a reality, is if we're putting ourselves in spaces that are scary.
Yeah.
And being able to do the work across all isms, right?
Yeah.
Not just racism. And I think as George Floyd and this racial awakening is happening, it's allowing people to be more brave. And I think that's a good thing. Because I think a lot of folks, it was just one person that said something about, a lot of the fear around not wanting an inclusive culture is the identity around me, meaning that I have to retract myself, as opposed to and that feeling like oppression,
Yeah.
as opposed to an inclusion environment where everybody gets the same level of attention and being okay with that.
Right. Yeah, we see a lot of that in the world. You know, I think Kendrick Lamar said, "I'm not going to fake humble just because your ass is insecure." You know, and that spoke to me on a level, you know, like there's a lot of people that feel some type of way and they're outspoken about it. But just because there's a narrative and it's the most common one doesn't mean it's the right one.
Yeah.
You know, so we need real leaders to step up and to just ask more questions, not tell people what they should say, not tell people what they should think, but have a non-dogmatic approach where we say, all right, open your heart, open your mind. If you don't know, it's time to ask some questions, you know, and hopefully that'll start to become the new norm, because a lot of children are raised in environments where they look to their parents and they ask questions and they get hard answers. And then we get to, 18, 19, 20, we start to look around and we're like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm supposed to start forming my own opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that should start much earlier, where we realize that there's an entire world of perspectives. You know, like this isn't just America. This isn't just social issues here in America. There's a whole world out there. And even though, you know, a lot of the world is looking to us for what is normal, like, there should be a sense of responsibility in that as well, you know, because we are world leaders out here. A lot of other countries and cultures look up to us as kind of like, what's the norm? And if that's going to be, you know, a fear-based narrative, or, you know, just polarity is our biggest issue now, where you're either on one side or the other. Yeah. And it just doesn't make sense to me, because we got to meet people where they're at.
I agree, and I think that polarization, because it is a middle, right? There's no need to pick a side a lot of times, right? Outside of the things that make sense, and there's no common sense nowadays, because we have so many different entry points to sort of what we believe, and we can isolate around things that make me seem more right all the time.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an issue, is that people think that true strength is the ability to be strong in your perspective and really stand your ground.
Yeah.
For me, like when I'm having a conversation, or, you know, I'm getting to know somebody and I ask them a question, or we're talking about something and somebody has the you know, the ability to go, man, I don't know. Or, you know, like, I'll find out. I'll have to look into that. There's nothing stronger in my mind, because you believe in yourself enough to go, you know, I don't know.
But you also being brave enough to say, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Let me go look it up, or be willing to let that person grow in their lack of understanding, right? And that being the thing, right? Because a lot of times too, it's so easy to be offended. It's so easy to push past being willing to teach others.
Yeah.
One, because damn right they should fucking already know, but two, sometimes it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, there's no understanding.
Yeah. And I think too, so many of us are reparenting ourselves, especially in our late and early 30s. I am in neither one of those age ranges, but that's a real thing. And it took me coming from Chicago to Austin to really have a space where I was willing to be and think about different perspectives of the type of person I wanted to be. And this Black Art Weekend became an opportunity for me to either, one, say Austin is an option, let me make it one, or complain about it.
Right.
And I think so much about what was cool about Austin is it just allows you to be a better version of yourself. Yeah,
there's no limit on the potential of expression here.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're willing to step up and do that, the community will get behind you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, yeah, man, I think there's an incredible opportunity for us to, you know, grow and learn from taking that step. You know, moving places is the number one way to do that. You know, just getting away from, you know, everything that you know, and then you realize that you're less sure of the way that your perspective was formed. Even if a lot of it's good in nature, you still start seeing like there's other approaches to life. People view things differently, communities interact differently.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up here in Austin, and
Oh, nice.
it's incredibly like friendly. You know, a lot of
So
good
you don't
looking
hate
people.
us? You don't hate us people that's coming in and just
I
taking
don't.
over? Okay.
No, that's
I
the
got
why
you.
this entire platform was formed, is
Got it.
because, you know, well, one, I grew up here. I love this city. I learned how to interact on this level, and then I left. I was
Gotcha.
19. I left for over 6 years.
Mhm.
I was in the Navy.
Got it.
I went all around the world, and so that was my introduction to a lot of perspective. I wanted that. I sought that out
Nice.
because I knew that I just grew up in this little like subculture on the edge of Austin. I was like, man, this is not all I'm gonna know my entire life.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
it wasn't like I got to get out of here because I hate this place. No, it was like, man, I love the way I grew up, but there's so much more out there.
Yeah.
You know,
you
and
had that yearning for something more.
yeah, exactly. And so just, you know, especially being in the Navy where I worked in a very culturally diverse environment, you know, we have a
First
lot.
off, you had no fucking choice. You like in a
Yeah,
2x4.
exactly. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no way
that
out.
makes
It's
sense.
like, it's not like, oh, I'm not going to work with you. I don't like you. It's like, you're working together every day. You're going to live together. You're going to eat together, everything, you know? So
Balls out, yeah.
yeah, you really got to understand even people that you didn't vibe with. You were like, oh, well, I mean, I can still like be decent, you know, because you had to be.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then touching on what you brought up, you know, like Eazy does it, and this platform is really my response to initially coming home after 6 years and being very excited to come back to Austin, Texas. But I returned home, and there was this very negative narrative from almost everybody I knew that I either grew up with or, you know, was around. And they're all like, you know, Austin's changing and it's just not the same. And like, I got home and I was like, man, like, what's changed? You know, what's so bad? And I go out and I'm like, man, like, I don't see what everybody's complaining about. Like I was just on the other side of the world, and it seems like there's a lot of new businesses. There's a lot of new people moving here in a very optimistic place.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to start new ventures and open businesses and
Nice.
express themselves through art. And I was like, I don't see what y'all are complaining about. So I started questioning that narrative. Okay, Austin is changing. Austin is growing. And I just look at them like, yeah.
Is it changing because it has to?
I mean, it just is, right? What do you like? My question to them was, what are you going to do about it? Like, what? Like, it's going to grow. It's going to change. So instead of just complaining about it, which is the easy thing to do, then we can ask ourselves, what's going to be our role in this?
Yeah.
You know, okay, if we love this city, if we know this city, then let's step up, let's play a role, and let's start to direct that narrative.
Yeah.
Because it is growing. Now we can either let it grow to the point where, you know, we recognize nothing that was, or we can celebrate that which is good about Austin, but there's also things that need to change. There's a lot of room for growth here.
And I think the other piece too is, I was remember right around the election, one of was people were really honing in on the fact of like what it means to be a participatory citizen, right, as opposed to a passive one.
Right.
Right. Passive one is just say, you know what, my vote doesn't matter. I don't need to engage.
Yeah.
And then all of these things would happen, and you would feel so helpless, right? The other way to think about it is, I have to. If I want it to be like I want it to be seen in a way that aligns with my views and my values, it requires me to put forth energy that can shape it in a way that I think it should go. Right?
Yeah.
And also forces you to work with other people that you might not even think you should or have any business to, because you have to change those hearts and those minds in order to participate in that process.
Yeah, and that's what I like about people moving here as well is, you know, like Austin is a very friendly place, and people collaborate on a lot of levels to make things happen.
Yeah.
And I use the word collaborate because people aren't just asking each other, you know, like, how are you going to help me? Or like, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
There's more. It's like people want to ask each other what they do. People here are pretty passionate about what they do, and then they want to share that and make each other better. So I think that's an environment that needs to be nurtured rather than just getting caught up and the grind being our you know, square one of you know, with all this growth. I mean, the attitude, the vibe here can change quickly.
Yeah.
But just by stepping up and participating in that growth and asking yourself, what is your role? How can you change this? And it doesn't even have to be on a big level. It could just be like speaking about, what you appreciate about the city or what you would like to see. And I mean, that's going to flourish. That's going to become what this city is what we celebrate, what we speak about, the way we encourage people to carry themselves, because if people just move here and there's no strong culture or sense of it, then they're just going to go about their business and they're going to bring the way they lived and are used to living here, and then the city's going to change. But what I like about everybody moving here is that we have the ability to show them like that Austin, Texas, like kindness and like friendliness, where like
I felt like a Texan for the first time last week.
Yeah.
I've been here for 4 years.
Yeah.
I went fucking fly fishing.
Yeah.
And I bought the little rubber things you put that goes up
the waders,
the,
man.
Whatever the hell
you're
they're called.
official.
and I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is what it feels like.
Yeah.
I'm waiting on the cowboy boots. That's coming soon, but
we'll make that happen.
But it's also a meditative experience. Like,
yeah.
I actually went to I think the creek in Round Rock.
Yeah.
Grisham.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had like, this is what Round Rock is called because of this rock. I didn't even know that part.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of it was like, coming from the city, never really was around this nature as much as this, right? And I think the thing about Austin, you see either people in shape or with dogs,
right?
Or both, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so like, you have to, like, that's the aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to fit in more, right? So the outdoor piece is something I'm starting to embrace, right? And
yeah.
Changing that perspective.
It's not Michigan Ave out
it's
here.
It's not Michigan Ave at all. No, that concrete cowboy piece. But it was just that experience definitely sort of allowed me to think about, okay, what does this actually mean for me, being this person from this place to this new place, and trying to merge this hybrid person that the world, the space is requiring me to be.
Yeah, I think Austin is a beautiful city for that, because there is so much happening, here in the city. There's a lot of art, there's a lot of music, there's fun places to go drink and get food. But there is, like a very good energy that you get from the land here, and it's accessible quickly, to get outside of Austin. And like, I grew up just outside of Austin in the country. And so I grew up, that's just what I knew, and so I thought like the entire world like operated on this pace, that's why I left and realized that there's a lot of different paces in a lot of different places. But, just that ability to go out and fish, and, even just here in the city where, you can hop on a paddleboard and go out on the water. Like,
I still haven't done that yet.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
But like, you could do that on your lunch break.
Yeah.
Or like, instead of that traffic jam, you could go walk around Town Lake Trail.
What's funny, because I work with a lot of corporations just for my day job, and I remember I was on the highways at Google, and they kept looking out the window. Oh, that's Tom. He paddleboards to work.
Yeah.
It's just like,
that's cool.
They do that here?
Yeah.
And it's just the most organic thing I've ever known in my life. But the most inspiring piece to that, too, is like, again, it's the ability to sort of develop the type of space and person that you want to exist in. And that's some really cool stuff. Yeah,
people operate on a very creative level here.
Yeah.
And then having the establishments to where, or resources, or, I was talking with someone the other day about, just kind of how low key this city is, and like, I think I had
to get used to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, you never know who's who, and it's like, I mean, there's a beautiful opportunity there if you're kind and you treat people well, and you ask yourself what your role is in the city, because then you can really connect.
Yeah.
And it's not a big enough city where everybody's moving on a pace where you won't see them again. Like, you're probably going to run into them again.
Yeah.
And so you really get to know people.
You do.
And, I love that I can go out at night and I can strike up a conversation with a stranger, and they may be, some CEO of a company or, just worth a lot. And we're wearing the same hat and the same flip flops, like it's a very casual city. Like I didn't even know you couldn't go into a bar with shorts and flip flops until I moved away from Austin.
Yeah.
I try to go out in Chicago or Cali and they're like, dude, you can't come in. And I'd be like, why? Because I'm wearing flip flops. Like, what is that?
Well, one, they either think you're homeless, or two, you can't afford the drinks.
Right.
Because that was one of the things I loved when I first got here, and I was like, I bought two beers, and the bill came back as $8.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. You gotta know where to go.
And I went back to Chicago 3 weeks ago.
For
for
$9 each.
No, I bought 2 drinks. It was $31 plus gratuity. I'm like,
yeah.
Could you warn me first? Like,
Yeah.
I could have came drunk. I should have came drunk first before I came in.
Yeah. That's why I got to get cowboy boots so you can start slipping the bottles of shots in your boots.
Oh, wow.
You know how many you could fit in there?
I'm guessing
A
they tried
lot.
in
Too
the
many.
past.
Too many. So I went to concerts my whole childhood. Like
Yeah.
now I wear Vans because I'm of age. I don't have to hide anything in there.
I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But so how long you been in Austin?
It'll be 4 years. in
4
August,
years.
Yeah.
Cool, man. And then you were an artist in Chicago. Or did that start here? Or?
That started here. I've been. I think the pandemic kind of forced everybody to stand still.
Yeah.
You really had to reinforce what it meant to think about yourself and what it is you wanted to come out of this time where you're meditating and nurturing sort of this new person.
Yeah, man.
And I was just always was creative in general. Was really deep into poetry, taught poetry for a couple of years in Chicago, really big on that poetry scene and the art scene just from as a spectator.
Sure.
And really was looking for something that allowed me to be creative because I've already had that creative eye. Yeah. And photography just made sense. So I just went to precision camera and just picked up a $500 camera and was like, let me see what happens. Yeah. And 6 months later, first gallery show. Cool, man. And been loving it ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think just taking a step outside of ourselves in the quarantine situation and creating that and having that space in our lives, there's so much good that came out of that, you know, and the same thing. It's just like the most common narrative always isn't the right one. It's not going to be the one that helps us grow on a societal level, you know, and there was just so much negativity around, what was going on here. People love to complain, man. And it's like, all right, if things are outside of your immediate control and you're still giving it energy, it's time to take a step back and ask yourself, all right, what could I do that's more productive for myself? How could I rewrite this narrative, to a point where I'm going to benefit this, because time is going to pass no matter what. Yeah. And so I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said that, there's a way to be patient and productive at the same time. And you can give yourself enough space and give the world enough space to where you can be patient and understanding and compassionate, but you can also have the tenacity to take a hold of your life and take that power back and say, this time's going to pass no matter what. Mm-hmm. When this is over or whatever's going on in your life, this is how I'm going to show up. And you can make that happen. You know, and we can create that space on our own on a daily level. It doesn't take another pandemic. But what we have to do is remind each other of what were the benefits of creating that space in our lives, because, it could be a month from now where everything just picks back up and we get, caught up again and everybody's going back to work in the office and, it's just, you don't create any space on a daily level, so you have no awareness of what's wrong until you remove yourself from it. You're just caught up. Yeah.
And I think, too, it's just giving yourself that empathy that you give to other people, right? If you give them hopefully, right? You give them that space to grow. Why don't you give it to yourself? And it was some crazy statistic about how many folks in that Gen Z range and even the millennial range have some form of anxiety. And when I really started to think about what anxiety was, it was the thought process around missing out on something or being removed from where you think you're supposed to be,
Yeah.
as opposed to like going your own route, right? And I never really thought about it like that until I really had this thought that, you know, maybe I also suffered from that belief that I'm not where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a part of life, you know, and I think there's a lot that happens from, you know, these terms that get like put on people, like anxiety, depression. Like, we need to ask ourselves what that is. You know, just asking that question and gaining awareness of what that means to you and how it shows up in your life goes a lot farther than looking to somebody else and saying, hey, can you fix this?
Yeah.
Like, whether it's a therapist or a doctor, like, you have to take your life under your control. And like, we have access to those things for a reason. I'm not saying that they're not important, but we got to be asking ourselves those questions. And for me, like, I swing both sides all the time. Like, I'm either anxious or depressed, and sometimes I got it, you know. But in either state, I'm patient with myself.
Nice.
And I'll tell myself, you know, with great highs come great lows.
Yeah.
And for me, like, anxiety for me, like you're saying, is just kind of like fear of missing out, but also really just angst to make something happen
Right
now.
now?
Yeah. And like,
definitely.
that's what I'm saying is like, you can be patient and productive. You can be compassionate with yourself and say, okay, well, realistically, this isn't going to happen right now, but what can I do to get there?
You know what my mantra has been? Right? One, it's be the vibe. Because so many people are waiting for somebody else to dictate what is live or what is amazing or what is happening right now.
Yeah.
But I think we all have it in our power to be the ones that dictate that state.
I like that, man. And then, like, if you're going to pinpoint, like, be the vibe, then you have to understand your surroundings.
Yeah.
You also have to adjust enough internally
Yeah.
to put out into the world what that vibe is, because it's never the same.
Yeah,
You're not going to pick one specific vibe and say, you know, good vibes only. Like, that's not always the vibe.
No.
You know. And so I love that mantra. It's simple, and you can put it into practice, and you gain more awareness of the world around you.
And it's one I made up, and another one I love that was made or said by, I think, Albert Einstein, was, all I know is I know nothing. Right? It's a notion that I'm always growing, and I know that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
But I hate when people say that they're matter experts.
Yep.
Because even though I have an expertise in this area, it's still so much things I don't know.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I'm always dealing with from that perspective. But the other one is that I made up. It's called Life is Only Worth Living in the Depths of the Profound. Because I think in that deep end, it forces you to look at the world in several different lenses and question everything.
Yeah.
And so many people think in absolutes, because there are some.
Right.
But with the main or big things, right, especially around philosophy or whatever, spirituality, there's so many different gray areas attached to so many things.
Right.
And until you get to that space, it's really hard for you to sort of consider other perspectives.
Yeah, and I think just, you know, searching for what is profound to you individually and, you know, asking those questions kind of leaves you room to grow, right? Instead of being so set in your ways that, you know, you're sure of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I think, you know, a lot of introduction of perspective for me is just made me less sure of myself, but like that helps me grow in a healthy way to where, like, I'm not insecure in the way I think of the world. It's just like I'm less sure, and so I have the ability to grow and be open to new relationships, new perspectives, instead of just like, this is the way.
I always think about, like, what does that need to be comfortable comes from?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I like,
and not be challenged. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And well, I love seeking discomfort, you know, not in a sadistic way, but I love being uncomfortable. Like, I like putting myself out there. I like, you know, just kind of leaning into the unknown, and I try to do that daily. But something else this brings up for me is really just, questioning everything. It doesn't mean that you have to live as a skeptic either.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes that guy that's at a party or at a dinner
Playing the
table
devil's
that
advocate. Yeah.
every question or every statement that's said, they're either shaking their head or just going against the grain, and like that may be their method of learning. But we can go about it in a much more that casual way, to where I think it's through observing.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I have the ability to be outspoken, but I also spend the majority of my time just observing and really trying to listen, almost to the point where sometimes I forget to communicate because I'm like, it's all happening up here.
All happening up here. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. And so sometimes I forget that this interaction is needed for people to really understand what level you're on.
You ever talk as if people are reading your mind, or able to read that thought that you thought you said out loud? No?
Yeah. I mean, I wish that's the way the world worked. That would have saved a lot of my relationships. But no, it's better that we're here now. So, but awesome, man. Well, what's on the future? What's coming up for y'all's collective, and what are y'all hoping to instill here in Austin?
Just the success of this event, we're thinking about Latino Art Weekend.
Oh, cool.
Trying to make sure we submit what we're trying to do, create that into a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And hopefully maybe one day open up a gallery space.
Cool, man.
Where, again, we are centering that BIPOC voice.
Yeah.
And other genres, definitely traveling more because it is summer. But I guess the biggest thing is like figuring out what Be the Vibe means for me, right? Like, how do I insert myself in the things that needs to be done, as opposed to expecting someone else to step up for me.
Mm-hmm. How often do you ask yourself that question? Is it more of like when you're out in a social setting, or do you ask that a lot with yourself? Or
I think it's also about that from a meditation perspective of being the now, right? Because again, so much of that anxiety is about thinking about the future as opposed to being present.
Right.
And because my mind races 1,000 light years ahead of me sometimes.
Yeah.
I really had to sort of just calm down and just be right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And, I think, as I mature, I realize that, we just have to take that control and own the way that we're showing up in the world. I think what caused me a lot of anxiety coming up was like, if there was a disconnect between my intentions and the way that I felt that the world perceived me, that caused a lot of anxiety. Yeah. And I think we can fix that by asking ourselves the questions, connecting the dots between, who we were in the past, who we are now in the present, who we want to be in the future. Yeah. The larger those gaps are, the more we don't feel right. Yeah. Right? That's what like seeking alignment for me means. It's not just this easy thing. It's this constant process of asking myself questions of like, all right, is this right for me, or is this right for me? And like, these may be patterns and habits and things that I've done where, I enjoy them or whatever. Like, I'm constantly asking myself if there's new ways of approaching in order to match, who I am now and who I want to be, rather than just what I'm comfortable doing. Yeah. And so the more often we can do that, on a daily level, you're saying through meditation, but, life should be a meditation. Like, Amen. We should always be in that state, like bringing our consciousness back to the level of our breath and really being present. And we can do that through conversation. We can do that through the careers that we choose. You just have to be mindful. Yeah. So that's awesome, man. Well, I'm glad that y'all are out here and celebrating. It sounds like y'all are going to get into all of the different cultures and really provide that space and focus and intentionality, which I love, man. Yeah. I think that's something this world needs more of. And, any way that I can help or we can help, just let us know, man. We just got to put it out into the world.
Do you party?
I'll party.
Okay, so
love to party.
We're going to party tonight.
Let's go.
Come through.
Yeah, right. Absolutely, man. Yeah, I think I heard y'all got some talented musicians coming through, and And all of y'all are welcome to go upstairs and check out the gallery.
Come through.
There's a lot of beautiful art there up there. And
It's
yeah,
3 different locations. That's primary Native, Cloud Tree, with musicians, and then also Northern Southern, Everybody's Studio, and then Deer Coffee Gallery. This experiences art. 4 to 7, happy hour here. 7 to 10, DJ Kid Cali and Riders Against the Storm, and then a DJ set afterwards. So,
Cool,
just, and then of course brunch tomorrow at Tillery with DJ Shawnee. So
nice.
That experience.
Yeah.
I remember going to Art Basel 2 years ago, and walking in this space, and they're like, they were shutting down. I was like, why are you shutting down? It's like, because Fat Joe is coming. What? Oh, this is Fat Joe in Miami. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to go to that. And then they also have something in Linwood, and also on the freaking beach, they have this 2 football fields of just art.
Oh, cool.
And if you heard about this guy paying $100,000 for a banana, right? Art installation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's that experience.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure how do we be the vibe, and how do we create something like that that's very unique and different? Yeah.
Yeah, we were able to raise money and then put it back into the community and therefore expand.
Exactly.
I love it, man. Well, let's go ahead and open it up. We got any questions today? Anybody curious about what they're up to of color?
Yeah.
What's up? What's going on, Felix?
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing out here in Austin. I'm happy to learn about it now. How many locations do you all have out here, or is it expanding? Do you have a home base yet?
We don't have a home base yet. Right now we're doing, again, 5 venues, but eventually we actually want to have our own home. It may be a gallery space. It may be a partnership of some kind where we can do an event every quarter. And we're hoping to kind of figure out, in the growth of this organization, the collective of artists that we work with, how do we then also establish relationships from a commercial spectrum with advertising firms as well, because these artists need to be supported in that way as well. And, just really kind of thinking outside the box when it comes to how to support folks who have this very creative and visual acuity, but a lot of times are in this very obscure space and or unheard or unseen. And how do we center their voices in a way that leads to greatness and greater things in general?
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And what's your website?
The website, we got Black Art Weekend. It's blackartwknd.com, where you can see more about tonight. Of Color is also on Instagram and also on Facebook, _, of Color, all caps. You can learn more about the event and more ways in which you can actually engage. And if you're interested in either volunteering or those things, you can always send us a message to kind of figure that part out. Or again, we always are looking for folks to help plan out Latin Art Weekend, or helping us to think about what that becoming a nonprofit actually would look like.
Excellent. Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Any other questions? Good to go. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming out. I want to thank Native Hostel for coming or having us out. Thank you, Steve, for joining me. Everybody give him a round of applause. And be sure to go check out the gallery, and then we're going to start up some live music here and dance. We got Doc Blessed on the decks here, and we're going to have a good time. So grab a drink. Let's meet somebody new. Let's go check out some art, and we'll kick it. All right, y'all. Thanks.